Well, it's another week and another look into what seems to be the internal crumbling of the South African police service and in other criminal justice system, the criminal justice system in total, I should say. We heard from ballistics experts this week about just how they botched an epic bungling of the ballistics report into the Armand Swart murder, where if it weren't for a second opinion, we might have never seen the linkages with nearly 30 other murder cases. Then we hear once more about two recurring alleged criminal underworld figures, Katiso Molefe and Vusumuzi Matlala, who both claim to know Ziyanda Ngcobo, a man who's now on a leave of absence. From captains, sergeants, brigadiers, all the way up to lieutenant generals, both in the Hawks and the South African Police Service, everyone seemed to be getting their hands greased from corrupt officials. And if they weren't allegedly getting paid in cash, there would be electronic transfers of amounts that maybe you and I have never ever seen and will never see in our lifetime. I'm Ziyanda Ngcobo, and this is your weekly wrap of the testimonies at the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry. The week kicked off with scrutiny into the ballistics report into the murder of vereniging engineer Armand Swart. The national head of ballistics took to the stand on Monday, where he denied that the initial report, which didn't link the cartridges to other cases, had been tampered with. Now, this serial number on the firearm used to kill Swart could not be retrieved by Captain Itumeleng Makgatwe, who works in the forensic lab here in Pretoria. It's only when the evidence and exhibits were taken to a lab in Amanzimtoti, south of Durban, at the behest of the Political Killings Task Team, that a breakthrough was made.
Brigadier, in paragraph 11 of this report that we're looking at, the analyst records that he was unable to determine the serial number of the pistol in question. I understand, or I understand, it has been reported to me that at a later stage the same process was done by a different analyst in the SAPS ballistics section, and that analyst was able to retrieve the serial number of the pistol in question. Are you able to confirm that?
Commissioners, it only came under my attention during the testimony in this commission that the analyst in the other laboratory was able to retrieve the number. So I was not privy to that information until I hear it during the testimony, Commissioners.
The other laboratory, would that be Amanzimtoti?
That is correct, Commissioners.
Makgatwe not only failed to retrieve the serial number from the firearm, he also failed to include analysis from the 15 cartridges that had been seized from Bramley, seen on the day of Swart's murder. You'll recall that former senior Joburg Central Police Officer Michael Puletau, alleged hitmen Diego Floyd Mabusela and Musa Kekana were apprehended in Bramley on the 17th of April, just hours after Swart's murder in Vereniging. Now, these cartridges were not reflected in the first ballistics report, but were later linked to the murder of DJ Somebody, DJ Vintos, businessman Don Tindleni, and other cash and transit heists, which are still under investigation. There was also a 9mm Parabellum Taurus and AK-47 taken from the suspects that day. So the question still remains, was Captain Itumeleng Makgatwe incompetent, overwhelmed, or deliberate in not retrieving that serial number?
You have described a process, the serial number reconstruction process, which suggests on its face, on the face of it rather, that you should be able to always to recover that the serial number, or to reconstruct the serial number. Now you have an analyst here who says, I was unable. It must suggest something. Either your capability is less, it doesn't always deliver, or he simply didn't follow a process that you say you have protocols, there are ways of doing it. He didn't do that.
There is no guarantee, firstly, that you'll always be able to retrieve the serial number based on various aspects. For example, how deep was the serial number erased? Some criminals use a grinder to erase the serial numbers. But like I said, we have measures in place that we have implemented to safeguard the credibility of the techniques. Like that another analyst must come and sign and confirming or verifying the findings, whether it's negative or positive, whether you have been able to recover the serial number.
The SAPS Forensic Lab uses the Integrated Ballistics Identification System, IBIS, which is technology used to identify firearms by digitally comparing unique marks on bullets and cartridge cases. Now, when Warrant Officer Akeda in KZN went through a process for a second time, he not only retrieved the serial number on the 9mm Parabellum Taurus and AK-47 used in the Swart murder, it is this detail that connected the artillery to nearly 30 other cases.
Are you then saying that as of that date, 20 October, the ABIS system would have recorded 29 hits for this, on this specific cartridge?
That is correct, Commissioners.
Ngcobo also explained that there are processes that the ballistics testing process undertakes. The first is when there's an attempt to retrieve the serial number, followed by a second opinion by another analyst, and if there's agreement between the first two experts, it's rubber-stamped by a reviewer. Now, during several stages in the process, the initial ballistics report was riddled with errors and inaccuracies, which the top honcho at the Police Services Forensic Lab says was a mistake.
These are the cases that have been linked to to 4 of the guns seized in Bramley. There's a 5th gun that comes from elsewhere. But what we see is more than 20 different cases. I think you even address it in your report. We see that 24 different cases were linked to the gun seized at Bramley at the time that this infographic was prepared. We saw, I think, on Annexure M1 that by October it was now 29 cases. What that means is that 24 at the time of this infographic, 29 by last week, 29 different investigations had been proceeding in parallel with one another. Without the investigating officers in each one of those 29 knowing that the weapons used in their case were the same as the weapons used in 28 other different cases.
What might also be a startling revelation about the administration of crucial forensic evidence, Ngcobo admitted to not knowing that the exhibits and evidence from the Swart murder left Pretoria for KZN without him knowing.
Brigadier, if the system in Pretoria works so well, why did the 2 cases end up in KZN? What's the reason for that?
Commissioner, it's a question that I'm also asking. I'm asking myself that question, Commissioner. And I do not have an answer, Commissioner, because myself, as the custodian of cases in the head office, Pretoria, if there's any request, must go through my office, and there must be a reason. If the client is not happy with my service, I've got a procedure to attend to client's complaint. So if it was because there was some unhappiness, there's a procedure to deal with that unhappiness. But in this instance, it only came under my attention at a later stage that cases were, in actual fact, being committed between the 2 labs on a regular basis. So I cannot give an answer as to what was the reason for that, Commissioner.
On Tuesday, it was then the turn of senior forensic analyst Meldon Mkhatshwa, the man who referred Mkhatshwa's error-riddled report to KZN He testified before the Commissioner. Ngcobo, a member of the PKTT, told the inquiry about the detrimental impact of the directive given on New Year's Eve by Police Minister Ziyanda Ngcobo to disband this team. Now here's my colleague Junior Khumalo with that testimony.
The once revered turnaround time of the KZN Political Killings Task Team that saw some of its members roped into high-profile cases in Gauteng and the Eastern Cape is no more. Such decline in performance has been credited to Police Minister Ziyanda Ngcobo's directive to disband the team in December last year. Despite the team not entirely being shut down, its capabilities have been severely hollowed out.
PKTT is not dissolved, but some members of the PKTT were sent home, like the Ballistics, the crime intelligence, the LCRC. The members who are left at PKTT as we speak is the detectives and the combat.
Ngcobo, a senior forensic analyst who now works with the Silverton Ballistic Office after having been a member of the PKTT, explained how this erosion of members with expertise has affected the working of the task team.
PKTT lack now, I think, the turnaround time of the investigating the case. They were having everything in the palm of their hands. When they arrest a person with a firearm, they send it to ballistics. We are going to produce a report within a day or two. They need LCRC to go and collect the specimens. Same day, the case in ballistics. So now they are no longer going to process things very fast to be effective as they used to be effective, because part of the disciplines are no longer part of them.
Another member of the PKTT also attested to this before the commission.
In PKTT, we had a motivating factor. I don't know where we were taking it. We worked on the case until we finish it. If there is a positive feedback that we are seeing on the examination, we will work until it's late.
The two senior forensic analysts' testimony comes as the commission tests allegations that Ngcobo's directive was unconstitutional and influenced by criminal elements seeking to evade prosecution. Ngcobo has, before the ad hoc committee in Parliament, denied such allegations. Contrary to Monday's testimony, submissions made by Ngcobo and Modisane on Tuesday suggest influence even within the ballistic unit in Pretoria. For Newzroom Afrika on Channel 405, I'm Junior Khumalo in Pretoria.
So when we come back, I'll bring into the conversation Christo de Klerk, a forensic ballistics expert who's not only previously worked for the SAPS ballistics unit in the late 90s, but whose experience has been called on in high-profile cases such as the current Senzo Meyiwa trial and in the trial of EFF leader Julius Malema. He's going to help us understand this week's testimony on that ballistics report. You don't want to miss that. Welcome back. Thanks for staying tuned to a wrap of the week that was at the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry. Now, before the break, we reflected on the testimonies of forensic experts in the National SAPS Forensic Lab. Let's bring into the conversation a man who's no stranger to the process, Christo de Klerk, who runs his own private forensic lab, but who previously served in the SAPS unit. A very good evening to you, Mr. de Klerk, and thank you so much for joining me in studio, because there's so much to talk about when it came to the testimonies of the national head, as well as the former PKTT member. Let me start here. Is it normal to seek a second opinion when it comes to a ballistics report from another province? Or was this just an exceptional circumstance because the political killings task team seemingly had their suspicions about the operations within the forensic lab in Pretoria?
Personally, in my personal view, it's not normal where you will have a second person or a second person from a different, like for instance, Gauteng versus KwaZulu-Natal, where somebody will ask to be view or review a case that's already been done. It's not normal. I would have expected probably a reflection from the KwaZulu-Natal office saying we've got a problem, we need to make sure that these... But now it all comes down to the integrity of the examiner itself. Do we know why this request was sent in? We do not know. So there might be an underlying request or underlying reasons for doing this.
And speaking of the integrity of the person doing the actual test, because there were questions, was Captain Itumeleng Makgatlo incompetent? Or was this, an issue of genuine fatigue because of the backlog that we also heard about at the National Forensic Lab? Or this could have been deliberate, because if we even listen to the process of the etching, you have to almost sandpaper the weapon and then through either chemical or magnetic process, then you're able to retrieve the serial number. So lots of questions about this particular expert.
Yes, according to me, the problem that we're dealing with is that the brigadier testified to the effect of the processes within the lab, where the captain testified on what his examination entailed.
Yeah.
I do not believe that the processes within the lab failed considerably or failed that badly. It's because of the quantity of work that actually came in that produced possibly the problems that occurred. But the mere fact that a firearm was etched via, and now you've got to remember how it's being done. If you're using the etch method, there's two methods of yours, and the brigadier explained it, chemically or the magnetic one. The magnetic one, both of those processes entail that you take the firearm and you need to prepare it. Because there's grooves on it, it needs to be made smooth like glass. Chemical one is there's a current flows through the metal, and the chemical will actually produce a reaction which eats away the number first. The magnetic one is exactly the same thing. A second person examining a firearm doing an etch process, I do not believe that the magnetic one was used, but a chemical one. So he probably produced the chemical one, or actually applied it, didn't find a number, and left it. Now, according to standard, you're supposed to stop the reaction by using oil on it to stop reaction, because the chemical is abrasive. It eats away.
Okay.
Now, because the firearm was sent, I don't know how long after the fact, sent back or sent to KwaZulu-Natal, now the number could have appeared because the reaction was still going on. So the right procedures, and that's personally what I think happened.
So it's not necessarily that Captain Makgatlo, abdicated his duties and deliberately left this firearm unattended or in the process, failed. Because, the testimony was that he even failed to include the 15 cartridges, which are now the 15 infamous cartridges, in his analysis. They just looked at the firearm. And now Brigadier Ngcobo told us that actually bullets are able to detect more in terms of picking up more and are able to make linkages quicker than an actual cartridge. Is that true?
No, I would disagree with that statement. A cartridge case as well as a fired bullet, what the brigadier actually stated is, and I think he used the words, makes them happy, is when they find a bullet that's positively linked to a firearm, because it actually means that this firearm, there was proof that it actually committed a murder, example.
Yeah.
That's what he said. The cartridge case on the place only places the firearm back at the scene. It does not actually show that the murder was committed by the firearm. If there's 16 cartridges or 15 cartridges that left out in a statement, that's a huge problem. Because now we're dealing with the integrity of the chain of custody.
Yeah.
From the scene to the lab, from the lab to the second lab. So between the two labs, there was a problem. And now it comes back to it. The system should have detected that there is a problem, or the review system should have detected, which wasn't there. But now we need to deal with how did this happen? Because the peer review system is only administrative currently in the lab.
Yes.
I'm taking a docket, okay, there's 15, yes, this is the number.
Then you mark it as viewed.
Right, yes. And as it was testified as showing the tick marks, yes, no. And they failed to write no. Who's checking the reviewer? So who's checking the checkers?
Yeah.
Because now there's two people, the initial examiner, as well as the reviewer, that's reviewing system comes into question. Just based on the fact that there was 15 cards or 16 cartridges received later on.
And I mean, that also brings me to my next point then, because even administratively, how is it that Brigadier Meshach Mkhabela admits that he was unaware at all, Christo de Klerk, that this evidence and even the exhibits that they were taken from the lab in Silverton and Pretoria and got to Amanzimtoti in KwaZulu-Natal to Warrant Officer Kada. I mean, are there no sign-out processes? I mean, what exactly is supposed to take place?
I think the biggest problem that we need to deal with is that the brigadier is in an administrative position. He's overseeing everything. I do not believe that he's involved in everything that happens on the floor.
Sure.
The problem, however, exists. If this was such a high-profile case requested from KwaZulu-Natal, the brigadier should have been notified. He should have, the request should have gone through him to make sure that everything is intact. And because they actually bypassed him, places a huge question mark as why did they bypass him? What's the reason for being that? Is it purely simple administrative problem, or didn't he know? Just simply he didn't know.
And maybe it was their suspicion that there might be issues within the forensic lab itself. And it brings me to my next question, because the brigadier was also at pains to explain just the pressures from a human resources and other resources kind of way, the pressures that they're under currently and the backlogs that they have to deal with. They're understaffed. They've got so much. They've got about 29,000 weapons still in their lab that still need to be checked out. So just take me through the state of the National Forensic Lab and compare it to when you were still there in the late 90s. In particular, I mean, the day-to-day runnings. I mean, we heard from, the former PKTT member, Katra, telling us that he was able to turn things around in 3 days, and ordinarily this would take 30 days. Why would it be much quicker in the setting of this political killings task team, do you think?
I do not believe it took 3 days, personally.
Well, that was the average turnaround time.
Okay.
He says he took 1 day, in fact. He started and concluded on the 30th of December last year.
I'm no mathematical genius, but if you take the numbers, and now you've got to consider what the brigadier testified to the effect. He said that all the firearms, the 29,000, all firearm related and firearms that is being stored within a museum, they're using or utilizing a museum in Gauteng. Problem one. What about KwaZulu-Natal? The cases or the cartridge or the firearms involved in KwaZulu-Natal won't be stored in Pretoria. The firearms from Port Elizabeth won't be stored in Pretoria, as well as the Cape Town. So the 29,000 cases that he's talking about is only Gauteng cases. You've got to remember this now. It's just Gauteng. The Gauteng covers half of the Orange Free State, half of the Northern Cape, Cape Town, Cape Peninsula, Eastern Cape serviced by Port Elizabeth and KwaZulu-Natal, or the one in KwaZulu.
So these are the 6 provinces that he had mentioned 6 provinces that are being housed or catered for by this one lab.
Yeah, but remember, Gauteng is not covered by all these areas, not the whole area.
Right.
It's like a police station. They've got a specific area they work in. So if I've got a case, example, in Petersburg, there's a shooting. That cartridge cases and the firearm or whatever, the exhibits, will be sent to Gauteng. If it happens in Bloemfontein, that's basically the cutoff. They can decide. Either they send it to Port Elizabeth or they can send it to Gauteng.
KZN?
Yes. Or KZN, it's roughly in the middle.
It's in the middle.
Let's say Springbok. Now that will be sent to Cape Town. Example.
Sure.
Just to give it, Umlazi will be sent to KwaZulu-Natal, not Gauteng.
Yeah.
So that 29,000 cases that we're talking about is only in Gauteng. Now we need to add KwaZulu-Natal, Port Elizabeth, as well as Cape Town, all those cases. He also refers that he's got 42 analysts. He didn't stipulate if the 42 analysts is globally based or just Pretoria. If you work it out as 2 cases, if you take it, just consider the following. If they work for the next year with the 42 people they've got, every day, 2 cases, each one, it can take them a year to go through all the cases. And that's without the new cases coming in.
So, in other words, it doesn't, on average, it's impossible to complete a ballistics report or retrieve a serial number within 3 days.
Now,
even if it's just this one exhibit, because remember, it was very specific request that was made by the Political Killings Task Team to this warrant officer Kader in Amanzimtoti.
If it's a special request, it will go through the commander. So in other words, we'll come from the top and we'll say, listen, here's a case for you. Then yes, 3 days is possible. But if it goes the normal route, there's no ways. I'm telling you now, 2 years minimum. That's what you're looking at.
So why would it then be much quicker? Then are we saying here then you need a setting of a Political Killings Task Team or a specific unit to, if you need to get answers quickly and expedite a case, that you have particular people who are solely focused on a particular case? Because that's the impression that one got, that because they'd actually specifically gotten a special request and sent these exhibits to Warrant Officer Kader, that their turnaround time was much quicker. You would have heard Captain Kacha there saying that we'd work until we finished.
It is possible to actually request that. I would not be surprised, because it's high-profile cases and because it's specific. Yes, they can appoint some specific person relating to that specific case or cases involved. Yes, it is possible, but it's highly unlikely. Because remember, we're dealing with analysts that's all trained exactly the same. The expertise are exactly the same. They're supposed to be independent the same. So what difference is it going to make if A, B, C, or D examine that specific cartridge case? The only reason I could think is maybe to make it easier, as like you said, just to get it out quicker. That's the only other reason that I can foresee.
Some fascinating insights. Christo de Klerk, thank you so much for your time. Interesting to hear, especially reflections on Captain Itumeleng Makgatlo, whose name was continuously mentioned. So perhaps then, by the time the second opinion was sought, the weapon and the chemicals had still been working, and that's why it would have been possible for Warrant Officer Kader to retrieve that all-crucial serial number from that firearm. But when we return, we take a look at the evidence of 3 detectives about the takedown operation at the home of Katiso Molefe on the 6th of December. Stay tuned. Staying tuned to Newzroom Afrika Channel 405. We're still looking at the week that was at the Madlanga Commission. Now, Wednesday's evidence was given by 3 detectives who were present at the home of Katiso KT Molefe during the takedown operation on the 6th of December. One officer was from the Political Killings Task Team, Captain Maxwell Wanda, who's a crime scene expert, and he told the inquiry about what he claims was the hostile manner in which members of the Hawks interacted with them as they were searching Molefe's Sandhurst home. The other 2 testimonies came from Captain Barry Kruger from the Hawks, who confronted Wanda about their operation. And then there's Brigadier Lesiba Mokoena, who's Kruger's boss at the Tactical Operations Management Section. Wanda, who's usually stationed in Richards Bay, explained how he couldn't understand why so many Hawks officers had been deployed to KT Molefe's home in the middle of an operation they were never meant to be a part of.
The presence of the Hawks were concerning to me because they came in numbers. They came in numbers, Commissioner, and I didn't expect them in that big number. And when I interacted with them, they were a bit aggressive and demanding answers, imposing questions to me up until I managed to speak directly, to interact directly with Captain Kruger, who was amongst them. But that it did not sit well with me, Commissioner, because why such a big number and in that attitude as well?
Wanda told the commissioners about the sensitivities around operations and how it's important not to compromise them through any kind of disturbances. He then shared how the tension built up when Kruger and his colleague rocked up, when no one seemed to respect the other.
Anything could have happened. It would have gone out of proportion. That there's some unfriendly engagement, maybe that might result in having that confrontation, because this, on the other side, we've got police officers who are armed, and the other side, we've got the other state agents, highly state agent police officers who might be armed as well. So in between, there is no understanding. Anything could have gone out of proportion.
So Captain Kruger would later then explain that they were on site to verify that there was a group of people at Molefe Sandhurst home impersonating the Hawks. Admittedly, both Wanda and Kruger did not produce any formal work identification to prove their legitimacy. Wanda adds that a deployment from a local police station would have been enough to verify whether the operation was legitimate if that was truly their intention. Nevertheless, at some point, once the tensions had subsided, an apology was offered to the takedown team.
While I was still talking to Captain Kruger, interacting, a certain African male who was wearing a civilian clothing approached me and gave me a cell phone, of which it was on. But on the other side of that cell phone, there was a certain person who who identified to me as a brigadier. And he mentioned his name and surname, but I couldn't capture on that particular time. And the brigadier, he says no, he would like to apologize on behalf of the members of the Hawks, because they were given a wrong information, but he is in the office of the Lieutenant General Libya, but they are at Limpopo attending the Police Excellence Awards.
But when it was time for the Hawks to give their side of the story, Brigadier Lesiba Mokoena denies speaking to Wanda through this unidentified man's phone. In fact, Mokoena says the only way he interacted with Wanda was through Captain Kruger's cell phone.
On the day in question, Commissioner, the DPCI was held in the National Excellency Awards that were held at Boerdeberg, it's around Pretoria East. And then while I was there, before the events get hot, I received a call from my divisional commissioner, which is Lieutenant General Dumisani Patrick Mboto. I'm reporting direct to the Divisional Commissioner. And then he said to me he was approached by our former national head, Lieutenant General Libya, to inquire if our operational team has been deployed around Gauteng. And then I said to the Divisional Commissioner, no, Lieutenant General Dumisani Mboto, my team has not been deployed around that site. And he said to me, the national head, Lieutenant General Libya, just received a call to say there are allegations that there's members alleging to be from the Hawks at a certain set address in Sandhurst in Joburg. And then they are also alleging that they are with Lieutenant General Libya on the said premises, and then they wanted to enter the premises and search the premises. Then Lieutenant General Mboto instructed me to go and verify who are those members at that address. I was given that address, though I didn't know who was the owner of the said house.
The story gets murkier because only 2 people were deployed to go and verify this bogus Hawks matter. But instead, Wanda testified that there were around 6 to 8 people present, some in marked golf shirts, others in ordinary clothing. Captain Kruger, who'd been sent by Mokoena, started asking for backup on various WhatsApp groups, which included private security companies. He also created one amongst Hawks colleagues, including his boss, to communicate the 2-man team's estimated time of arrival. But Mokoena categorically denied participating in the Hawks WhatsApp group about what they called an emergency operation. And the reason for this seems to be because before Kruger arrived in Sandton, there was already confirmation that the takedown operation was legit.
And around 1644, on that same day, there is a WhatsApp that says this is a legitimate police operation. I will send you Ops Commander's number. And then by around 1652, the details are provided that this is a legal SAPS operation, counterintelligence task team appointed by General Kumalo. Lieutenant Kumalo is in charge. Sorry, Brigadier, are you there?
Yes, I can see.
Do you see where I was reading from?
Yes, Commissioner, I see where you are reading page 9.
So, according to Kruger's statement, this is 10 minutes before he arrives at the Sandhurst address, because he says, I arrived at 5 o'clock. So 10 minutes before, there is information on WhatsApp that this is a legitimate police operation, and who is the commander responsible.
Mokoena continuously contradicted himself when it came to whether or not he participated in the WhatsApp group created by Kruger, which gave updates. This is despite the evidence leaders beaming on the screens at the Commission excerpts and screenshots of conversations that took place on the group that day, which clearly show that Mokoena was responsive to the comms from the team.
Is that not the reason why you said, no, I never saw what happened in the group? I was not participating in the group, so I never saw that. I never saw that communication. Therefore, I could not have halted what my Hawks colleagues were doing at the premises. I could not have halted them much earlier. Is it not because you find it difficult to respond to that question that you saw your way out as simply saying, I did not participate in the group? Is that not the real reason?
No, it's not like that, Commissioner.
So the question then became, why did Kruger still proceed to Sandhurst even after confirmation that a legitimate operation was underway. By then, Kruger had reached out to a man known as Chief George from the Ekurhuleni Metro Police for backup, and it is this Chief George who then deployed the now infamous chopper that was hovering over the Molefe home on the 6th of December, intensifying what was an already sensitive situation.
The objective is different now. You are now going to simply get the name.
Yes.
Why do you not tell the other teams to back off? I've been told that this is a legitimate police operation. I will now go simply to get the details of the person in charge of the scene.
You are correct, Commissioner, yes. Like I was only 7 or 8 minutes at that time, I think, away from the scene, so I still proceeded anyway to turn around and go all the way back to Pretoria. Let me just stand off and I can get the correct information. Because Chief George, if he was in the helicopter, I don't know how would he have got the information of somebody on the ground. And yeah, I could give proper feedback to my commander.
My concern is not you still continuing to go there. I understood you to be saying you would still need to go to get the details of the person in charge there. My question is, why do you not tell the other teams to back off once you were made aware that this is a legitimate police operation?
I understand, yes, no. I don't know why I did not. I just said I'm still on my way to confirm. I don't know why. But I can say on my arrival, I did not find anybody standing there that I sent or I asked help from.
What became even more alarming for the commissioners was how there was a second Hawks team on site when Kruger and his colleague arrived at Molefe's abode just after 5 p.m. These other members remain unknown as their details were not recorded. And to this day, it's not clear why they were there and who deployed them.
What is especially concerning for me, Captain, is that you are sent to this address in Sandhurst because allegedly there are people who are impersonating the Hawks. While you are there, other people arrive dressed as the Hawks. You don't get their identity details. You don't know who they are. You don't know where they come from. You say you believe that they were from Johannesburg DPCI, possibly organized crime, which means you don't even know where they came from, and you don't even know if they impersonated the Hawks, because you don't know who they are.
Correct, Commissioner, yeah, you're correct.
And
yes.
yet, the purpose for which you were sent to the address was to verify whether there were people there who were impersonating the Hawks. That troubles me.
I understand, Commissioner.
I can tell you that even more startling is how there's absolutely no record of the deployment by Mokoena. The only thing that is evidence of what took place on that day of the 6th of December are some notes written somewhere in Kruger's diary. All right, let's take a quick break, and when we return, I'll take you through the testimony of Witness C, a member of the PKTT, and his earth-shattering testimony into the arrest of Vusumuzi Cat Matlala. Matlala seemed to be the money man for a lot of high-ranking police officials, and the witness details the who, when, and where of it all. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. So Thursday's testimony centered around Vusumuzi Cat Matlala, who I can describe as setting the cat among pigeons, if you like, or maybe still playing with my words. This controversial security company owner let the cat out the bag, because the inquiry heard about how suspended Deputy National Police Commissioner Shedrick Sibiya was characterized as a criminal himself by Matlala. Witness C, who's a detective that investigates criminal cartels in Gauteng, has continued their testimony after pausing to attend to their academic commitments. Commissioners were told that Matlala became upset and frustrated with Police Minister Ziyanda Ngcobo, alleged fixer Brown Mokhotsi, and Sibiya, all of whom were allegedly financially benefiting from the businessman in exchange for protection against arrests and securing SAPS SAPS tenders. Matlala was initially arrested on the 6th of December 2024 in connection with the kidnapping of Pretoria businessman Jerry Boshoga, but was later arrested on the 14th of May this year for the alleged attempted murder of his then-girlfriend Tebogo Tobejane. It was during an interview then with the detectives a few months ago that Matlala spilled the beans on how he was influenced to open a case against the Political Killings Task Team officers who arrested him.
14th of May in the morning, as we had now already had the J50 in our hands, we now started to do the reconnaissance and the surveying of Mr. Matlala's movements. And yes, we were able to follow him up until Midrand on the New Road. When we apprehended, when we arrested him there, he even said, no, I was coming from Ria Piega's house, so, but we didn't really took cognizance of that much, because like what we needed was only our suspect for the attempted murder case.
So the commissioners heard how the relationship between Mkhono, Mkhotsi and Matlala soured when the latter no longer pursued the case against the police who apprehended him last year. And in response, Mkhono then cancelled a SAPS tender worth hundreds of millions of rands. But Matlala, who seemed to have given a tell-all, explains how he met suspended Deputy National Police Commissioner Shadrack Sibiya.
As we advanced with our talk or interview, then we came to ask him to say, how did you know Lieutenant General Sibiya, the DNC? And he indicated that he used to provide security services at the farm of the late Mr. Msibi, who was also known as Mr. Muswazi, or the old man. He indicated that Lieutenant General Sibiya was a regular person there who would always, from time to time, they will meet at the farm. And at the farm, that is where he had met a lot of Mr. Msibi's associates who were introduced to him as the Big Five. And they were also calling each other brothers.
So let's now bring into the conversation retired Interpol ambassador and security analyst Andy Mashaile to hone in on this takedown operation at KT Molefe's home and witness his testimony, which speaks about several themes, not only within the political party system, but primarily the South African Police Service. A very good evening to you, Mr. Mashaile. I mean, some startling testimony that we've heard about money bags allegedly being given to top officials, whether you're talking about Major General Feroz Khan from counterintelligence, Shadrack Sibiya himself, money being dropped off. You know, at various levels of the South African Police Service, it would seem that Matlala had his tentacles in them.
Ziyanda, good evening to you, and sparing a thought by directing you to the wallpaper behind me for the Hurricane Melissa that destroyed that town or that city behind me, Montego Bay. Ziyanda, it is very painful when you learn of these details and you learn of the capitulation of those who are entrusted with the safety, security, crime prevention, crime combating, and crime detection in our country. these shenanigans that we have listened to, some of them being delivered by the horse himself, Mr. Matlala, or should I say the cat itself, Mr. Matlala, indicating the level of seriousness of corruption and bribery that he was involved in, that ultimately brought in the minister, the deputy national commissioner, and that led to this toxic narrative about the Hawks coming through, and this Captain Barry Kruger, who could not explain to the people of this country and the commission why he called up the big numbers from a backup point of view. Because my analysis, given the evidence that was put before us, he is the one who is supposed to explain why was there such a big number of the Hawks, as the number suggests that it was about 68, if not 6 to 8 people, and one is not very certain. So these things, this behavior and this conduct, including the visit to the farm, including associating with those who are toxic to the rule of law in our country, really suggests that this heartbreak week will lead to more challenges with regard to the further investigations that are going on, as General Ntantam Kwanazi has opened a case. He's a complainant in a case that led to the confiscation of the gadgets of Lieutenant General Sibia.
I mean, one of the concerning things for me, Mr. Mashaile, has been about how till today there were 2 teams from the Hawks that went to Katie Molefe's home, and Captain Barry Kruger could not even be certain where this other team came from. Now, how would one even begin to go about identifying these people? Are they possibly part of this criminal network? Are they also serving the interests of this Big Five cartel? I mean, it's scary to think that you're there to go and see if they are bogus Hawks officials, but then you see another team that was not called by you and you don't ask for details.
Ziyanda, you're quite correct, Ntagama. He must explain to us how many backup teams did he invite to that verification party that he was attending. Remember, he was only going there to verify. Whilst I understand that when you go to a situation that you are not certain of, you would call for backup, but you would call a small team because you are not expecting to walk into a firefight. And therefore, you would approach that operation with great caution, as you have been told that there are people with firearms. He is supposed to explain to us how many Hawks did he invite and where were they from. And here's a rider, Mtagama Ziyanda. Police cars have what you call an AVL, an automatic vehicle locator. So all the cars of the Hawks would then be put onto that big screen that would reflect the AVLs in those cars. And the AVLs in those cars, if they do have, will indicate how many cars were there and the serial numbers or the call signs of those vehicles. So it is a very simple matter for the commission. You simply call for the AVL of all the Hawks cars in Germiston, that is Gauteng, as well as the AVL registrations or details of the Hawks vehicles that left Silverton to Sandhurst.
All right, I'm all the way out of time. Thank you so much. That's retired Interpol Ambassador Andy Mashaile, who was just reflecting on the modalities and the level of rot that was explained to us by Witness C at the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry. Well, that's how we end things for this week's reflections of the inquiry. We'll be back at the same time next week, giving you a roundup of what you need to be listening very carefully to when it comes to the testimonies, and we connect the dots for you as citizens of South Africa as we watch this movie continuously unfold. But for now, it's goodbye. Thank you for watching.